Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the park.
Thanks.
Okay. Danielle. Okay. Tell us something about yourself. What do you do?
I was working as a behaviour specialist with children with complex needs with disability, and finished or was terminated from my role for not being vaccinated about a month ago. So moving into private practice and into any ways that I can help people or continue to help people. Yeah.
And why did you decide not to take the vax?
I've really thought about this. I've thought a lot about what makes it different for some people, you know, in terms of those of us who are, I guess, awake, and those who have chosen not to, and those who have, that have made a different decision. And I guess looking back, ever since a little girl, I always wanted to understand why, and I was always somebody that challenged the social norm, I guess, and I remember when I was being asked to be vaccinated as a kid, I actually went and hid under the pillows in the library and stayed there all day until I could go home, and I never got vaccinated, and I have no idea why. Looking back, I think it's just that inner guidance and intuition. I obviously just followed my gut with it, and when this came about, I initially made the decision because I was concerned about my own health and things that had been going on for me, and I didn't think it was the best decision. And the more I researched it, I had more and more questions. And then secondary to that was people's reactions to me. So I started noticing the discrimination. I started noticing the way people would not hear my, I guess, voice in this. And the more that I continued down the journey, the more concerned and the more aware I became. And then it just ethically, what has happened to us and to our state, the division that has occurred, I can't get on board with it. I can't align myself with it. I feel sick when I think about it, and if I really tune into myself, I know it's not the right decision for me, but the lack of respect for people that have made that decision, I think, again, I can't align myself with it. I think also professionally, you know, hearing that therapists in different states cannot do telehealth for their clients. You know, I work with a girl that, or used to work with a girl that was told that she couldn't do an assessment on an unvaccinated child. These things don't make logical sense. This cannot be transferable down a computer. So these things that were really blatantly, you know, blatant in our face, seeing other therapists make justifications for failing to treat and to heal and to support, when that's our oath as therapists and practitioners and allied health support people, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
As a psychologist, do you think it's possible that a great section of our community is simply literally downloading a new morality and installing it and running with it and leaving us behind? I mean, is this some sort of form of evolution, and we're the old morality and they've taken off with a new one where everything's back to front? Integrity now means silence and compliance. Tolerance means intolerance. Is that what's happening? Because how do you explain the rise of well, it's cruelty, really, state enforced bullying and cruelty? How it baffles us.
I think the more that I've kind of, I'm going to say, awoken to this, the more I've sort of realised that that's always been the case. I don't think that this is anything new that is happening now. I think that this has been ingrained for lifetimes. I think that it's just now that it's come to some sort of, I guess, head where we've got the opportunity to really, you know, stand in our sovereignty and do things differently. But I don't think that this is new, and it's just new to us. Well, it's new to me, and it's been a very, very quick and harsh awakening, I guess. I forgot the rest of the question, Mike.
It's more just, how do you explain from a psychologist's point of view that people are adapting so well to being nasty?
Fear. It's exactly what you said before. Fear is the real pandemic here, and I think that is enough to I mean, we often talk about, as psychologists, this idea of cognitive dissonance. You can't hold two competing concepts at the same time. And we often work with people to try to help them formulate different ideas about the same idea. So So I'm trying to think of an example for this, but if you are sold one message and you buy into that, and you are buying into that because of fear, you then are going to find it very difficult to hold a competing idea to this. And the fear is so powerful. And I think the fear is so powerful, and I apologize because I don't know if it was Julie or Louise that mentioned this, but we have all experienced some form of trauma. And this is my own personal perspective of this, but I think that healing that is so needed is what allows us to, the traumas that we've gone through is what makes that fear so powerful. And I think the way out of this is, in terms of a psychological approach, is to heal, or to help people heal those underlying traumas and those underlying challenges that make them so susceptible to the fear. I think a lot of people that have that I've spoken to that have awoken to some of the bigger narrative into this pandemic of fear are those that have already faced significant traumas and have already started that healing process. Not all, but I think there is a large percentage of people that have already had to face discrimination, segregation, bullies, unfair parents. You know, they've had to face their own personal traumas, and through that they've become more aware of the mass agenda here. They've already come up against it. They've already lost trust in systems and had experience of corruption. So again, not all. There's some people that I've also spoken to that have been this way since being born. You know, they've been the ones that have always questioned, that have always said no, that have always really looked into things a little bit further. So I'm definitely not saying that's the all, but I do notice a lot of people that have been through significant experiences in their lives are the ones that are now not so easily complying.
How do you, what in psychology, what are simple things that we can do to help other people conquer their fear? Because, I mean, this Christmas, you say things have been always this way. I have to disagree. I've never known a Christmas ever where people are not inviting families out of fear, en masse. I've never known a time where it's basically almost a noble civic duty to dob in your neighbour. And now we have surgeons in Queensland who are going, if you're not on the transplant list, if you're not vaccinated, you're kicked off. So it's basically comply and die. So it might have always been this way underneath, but it's never been this way publicly. So, and if it is driven by fear, what are some simple things that we can do as a community to try alleviate that fear, and with the hope of recovering, you know, some of the beauty of this country used to have?
That's a really full-on question, so I'm going to do my best to answer it. I mean, I started off this journey myself professionally, calling myself a bit of a professional breadcrumber, in that, you know, being a bit of a professional breadcrumber, in that I wanted to go in questioning. I wanted to pique people's curiosity. I wanted to ask questions that ask questions that helped people. Is this working out there? Yeah. Ask questions that would help them think critically themselves, because as soon as we go into it and we start to be resistant in any way, people's defences and their walls come up and they're not open to the message. So I'll give you an example. I was speaking to a therapist in Adelaide and I was like, oh, how are things going up there? And she said, oh, they're really great actually. We can now eat outside. And I said, oh, that's great. She goes, yeah, we can eat outside as long as we're standing. So we've got these standing tables outside in the pub, and we can eat and we can drink, but we can't sit down. Now, this is a really critical thinking, intelligent woman. And I said to her, oh, okay, what do you think the difference is between sitting down and standing up? Rather than saying, are you serious? Like, that makes no sense. I was like, oh, okay, well, what do you think the difference is? And you see her thinking, you know, she thinks, well, it's because there's more air when you're standing, and so you're safer. And I was like, oh well, and I just said, it's good. I'm glad that you can go out and you can eat standing up, and it's safe for you to do so. Now, if I push that further, there's opportunity for her defences to come up, and then we're in a position of resistance. She's not going to hear me, but possibly when she's going to sleep later, or she's out on a run, or she's doing something, she might start thinking about it. She might start thinking, oh, what was that about? Wonder why Danielle was asking me those questions. So I think it's about natural curiosity, and like I think you said earlier, coming from a position of love, unconditional love, being able to hold space for these really difficult conversations, because as soon as we start shutting down those conversations, that's when the trauma really embeds in us. That's when we really get into a position of trouble where we're shutting down the conversation, and I think this is what we're seeing en masse at the moment, that we're being quietened. So I think, going back to the question about fear, there is so much fear, and I wish I had a great answer. I'm definitely just as guilty for subscribing to the fear, and I'm off all mainstream media. But it's a scary time, and I think that's a pretty normal human emotion. So the best tip I think about combating fear is get out of your head and into your body. So we've heard today about some grounding techniques, connecting with the earth, putting your feet on the ground, moving, doing power posing, like putting your hands up in the air, holding your hands on your hips and poking out your chest, really, physically embodying, dancing, singing, finding other ways of working that trauma and that experience out of your body so that you can hold space for other people, so that you can hold space for yourself. So fear, I think meeting, and like you said with the resistance, not leaning into that resistance with other people, holding space for them and being kind, because the more we shut it down, the more that we're going to stay in this perpetual pattern of hate and division.
There's basically you can't fix a problem unless you can identify it. And I have a lot of people calling me up all the time saying this will wake people up. But what if people have already woken up? What if they're fully awake? What if they're actually the only difference between us and the Romans who used to go to the Colosseum is that they didn't realize they had to pretend to be morally outraged. I mean, we're the ruling species on this planet, not because we asked the other species nicely to please die so we could take over. I mean, we're a savage, cruel, nasty animal, and are we not facing that reality that at the moment our leaders are bringing that out in us, and that there's a portion of us who are relishing in it? Because the stories I'm hearing is from little Nazis who are relishing in the power of either being a Cho directive, some of the cops we've seen who were absolutely enjoying shooting rubber bullets at their own people. If we can't address the evil darkness within our souls, and that we've unleashed it like the Force, how can we ever fix the problem if we don't have the courage to face it?
I think it comes back to your own healing. It is the power and the evil within.
What I'm saying is, like, okay, let's take a death camp. Now, reality is, they had a lot of people working in the death camps, and they weren't all soldiers. And chances are there were people that would have enjoyed doing the evil things. So we're up against evil. And an evil person might decide, I don't need healing. I'm actually really enjoying this. So how do we combat that?
Through our own healing. So we can't control the evil in other people. We can't control or influence that. It's not, we can't wake people up necessarily. We can do our best to put the information out there and to continue to try to spread the light and spread the good. But we only can do that when we come back to ourselves and we heal ourselves. And yes, I agree. I think there are people that are going to relish in the toxicity of this and the evil of this, and I can't combat it from a psychological perspective, but from a spiritual perspective, light always wins, and those people choose their path, and it doesn't mean that makes them more powerful. I don't think that our energy or our focusing on those particular people. I mean, this is a really interesting question, I think, spiritually around, well, are we going to wake up, or are these people already awoken? And I mean, I just don't think anybody knows, and definitely not from a psychological perspective. I think, as a psychologist, I would
It might be a fear thing. I mean, we talked of their fright. I mean, that could be a fear thing. We talk that they're frightened, but what if we're too frightened to accept the fact that no, they are awake? We've awoken the Sith Lord in these people, and they are. Not all of them, but they are, and we're seeing it. They're dobbing us in like brown shirts like never before. And I don't think they're doing it because their daddy treated them badly. I think they're doing it because they're enjoying hurting other people. There's a pleasure to it for some people. And so to us, I know light and darkness have always fought, and good and evil have always fought, and neither one has actually eradicated the other. But sort of saying, I'm just wondering if we're doing ourselves a disservice if we don't have the courage to actually face the true problem and the true threat and then tackle that. If we're constantly trying to tell people you've got to wake up and they're fully awake, I just wonder if the losers in that will be us, because we're not actually fighting the fight we should actually fight yet.
What would fighting the fight look like?
Now I'm being interviewed. I think it's addressing the real problem. It's addressing the thing that we're up against, real evil. We're not up against zombies that haven't woken up. There are some, but the controlling ones, like Dan the psychopath and the other people, we're up against people who want to destroy us and maybe even kill us and do this. And if we're thinking, oh, they haven't woken up and they're really good people, they're just asleep, then maybe we're not getting our true defenses up, whatever that will be. And in order to grow, in order to actually have a chance, we have to actually go, no, this is the actual real problem. We have to identify the real problem, which is the evil within all our souls.
Exactly. I think it is the evil within all ourselves, and I think that's the true path for healing. I don't know if I'm articulating it well in that, No, you're fine. I don't know if I'm articulating it well, but I guess that is the healing, because what do we do about that? And I think the battle is within, because the more light that we share, the more positivity, the more that we don't lean into that resistance, don't comply with that evil, stand in our sovereignty, the more light, the stronger we are. And I think it comes back to your initial point about the 30-30-40. You know, we're not going to wake up that 30. We might not even wake up the full 40. Yeah, well, that 30 might enjoy it, but rather than focusing our energy on that evil, which I do believe exists, really spend our time on reaching out to those 40 that we needed back on the light side.
Our time is up. You got one more question. What's your favourite colour?
Ooh, yellow, because it's happy.
Thank you.